This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Game on. The best performing stock in the Dow this year tops profit expectations, but is the outlook for Nike just as strong?
New rules, while real estate pros blame Washington for a sharp drop in sales last month.
And 'tis the season. More people are giving back this year, and the improving economy may have a lot to do with it. All that and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Tuesday, December 22nd.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon Epperson, in tonight for Sue Herrera.
And welcome from me as well. I'm Tyler Matheson. We begin tonight with earnings from the hottest Dow stock of the year, Nike. The world's largest sportswear maker continued to see strength in its North America and Chinese operations, reporting earnings of 90 cents a share. That was 4 cents better than estimates. Revenues came in at nearly $7.5 billion for the quarter, just shy of expectations, but about 4% higher than last year. Shares rose in initial after-hours trading, adding to Nike's 37% gain so far this year. Sarah Eisen digs deeper into Nike's results.
Nike is firing on all cylinders. Few highlights from the quarter. China remains a bright spot for this company. Nike posting 24% sales growth in the region and a very strong outlook when it comes to future orders. This despite a slowdown in the Chinese economy. Nike continuing to see double-digit gains there. In fact, CEO Mark Parker told me a few months ago he doesn't see any sign of the economic weakness reported in the numbers. But like any global company, Nike is feeling the pain of the stronger U.S. dollar, which continued to strengthen over the quarter. Total sales growth for Nike this quarter was 4%. That would have been 12%, though, without the impact of the stronger U.S. dollar, which Nike feels particularly acutely in the emerging markets and, of course, in Western Europe with the weakness of the euro. But when it comes to Nike's story these days, it's all about profitability, increased margins again this quarter, driven by new innovative products and sneakers, which Nike was able to charge higher prices for. That, coupled with its efficiencies in the supply chain and new technologies when it comes to manufacturing like Flyknit, all helping drive gains in Nike's bottom line. Overall, a solid quarter in what was high expectations going into an earnings report from the Dow's best performer of 2015. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Sarah Eisen.
Paul Swinan follows Nike for Morningstar, where he's retail equity analyst. Welcome, Paul. You know, we just heard Sarah talk about the high expectations for Nike, and of course, they seem to have met them in this quarter. Will that continue into 2016?
Well, don't forget 2016 is going to be a strong year because you've got a number of events. The Olympics, the European Cup, which is really important now. Nike's pretty big in soccer, so that's a big event for them. The other thing is, don't forget the dollar hopefully won't re-strengthen. If anything, it might weaken a little over the course of the year. So I think investors are already anticipating some of these improvements.
So let's talk a little bit about one of their critical markets, and that is China. We hear every day a drumbeat of news about how China's growth is slowing. Is that slowing of growth affecting the Chinese consumer? Do you expect it in 2016 to show up there?
Well, I cover luxury as well as sporting goods, and in sporting goods, growth in China has been strong. In luxury, it has not, but I think that's because a lot of Chinese consumers are actually going abroad, either to Japan or to Europe to shop for luxury goods. The other thing is, you know, $100, $200 pair of sneakers in China is kind of a luxury good in itself. So I'm seeing this as a very positive read on China. The futures orders for Nike, currency neutral in China, were up 34%.
You know, a lot of investors are a little bit wary, perhaps, about apparel and particularly how some retailers have done during the holiday season. Is it better in 2016 to perhaps stick with athletic brands like Nike if you're going to go for an apparel retailer?
Well, you know, you got to be a little bit careful with apparel and also fashion. Obviously, in my view, athletic apparel and footwear, the athletic brands in general, are a little less fashion sensitive than, let's say, a Michael Kors. So yes, athletic apparel has been a fashion trend in the last 5-6 years, but in general, a broad-based company like Nike, although they are fashionable, they're more insulated than another pure apparel brand.
If I were to buy the thesis that I want to be a part of the activewear world and I want to invest in either Nike, Under Armour, or Adidas, which one would you choose based on price and future prospects?
Yeah, well, that's a layup because even though I think all the companies are priced a little rich right now, Nike and Adidas are actually equally. Adidas actually trades for a higher earnings multiple, and they trade a little bit above my fair value, both companies. However, Nike's long-term growth is about 10 to 12%, whereas Adidas's is only about 6 or 7%. So I would pick Nike.
All righty, there we have it. Paul Swanan, thank you so much with Morningstar.
On Wall Street, stocks rallied as oil stabilized, and one of the most beaten down Dow stocks this year, Caterpillar, saw big gains for a change. The Dow Industrials rose 165 points to 17,417. NASDAQ gained 32. That put it back above the psychologically important 5,000 level. And the S&P 500 added 17. In the energy markets, domestic crude traded basically at parity with Brent. That's the global oil benchmark. West Texas settled at 36.14 a barrel, slightly above Brent at 36.11.
The U.S. economy expanded a touch slower in the third quarter than first thought. The final read on third quarter GDP, which is the broadest measure of economic activity, came in at 2% from July to September. The economy had expanded by 3.9% in the second quarter. Steve Leisman explains what's working within the U.S. economy and what's holding it back.
The government made a modest downward revision to third quarter growth, bringing gross domestic product to 2%. But that average and very pedestrian figure masks both strengths and weaknesses inside the U.S. economy. First, the strengths. The consumer's been doing just fine for almost 2 years now. 6 of the past 8 quarters have seen consumer spending growth of 3% or better. You have to go back to 2006 for a better running average than that. That's helped send autos flying off of dealers' lots and meant pretty good gains in home building. So if consumers are strong and they're such a big part of the economy and they've helped autos and helped housing, why isn't overall growth closer to 3%? Well, there's 2 reasons. First, business investment. Second, weak overseas growth. Equipment spending, it was solid in the third quarter, but it's been moving in fits and starts. It was up 9% in the third quarter, but just 0.3% in the second. It's been hampered by the crash in oil prices, where spending for rigs and pumps and trucks for the oil field, they've been slashed. Companies have also been reluctant to invest amid a climate of overall nervousness and uncertainty. Add to that a stronger dollar, which has made American goods more expensive overseas and challenged domestic manufacturers. They're trying to sell more expensive goods into mostly weak overseas economies. The bottom line, domestic growth outside of oil, it's doing pretty well. But weak overseas growth and a strong dollar, they're taking away from total U.S. growth. The optimistic scenario for 2016, job and wage growth continue to underpin strong consumer spending. Then the dollar and oil stabilize and weak overseas economies turn around, giving manufacturing and business in the U.S. a lift. That could propel the U.S. to the sought-after 3 or even 4% growth. It's possible, but many on Wall Street are more worried about the opposite, that the weak parts of the economy in 2016 drag down the strong. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Leisman.
Home prices surpassed their 2007 peak in October. This according to the Federal Housing Finance Agency. Prices increased that month 0.5% from the prior month. Low inventory and an improved job market helped drive up those prices.
On the other hand, Tyler, sales of existing homes suffered a surprise setback in November. The National Association of Realtors says sales tanked 10.5% for the month, way below expectations, to its weakest level in about a year and a half. And much of the decline is being blamed on new regulations out of Washington. Eamon Javers has our story.
Rising home prices and low inventory were expected to slow existing home sales last month. But new mortgage regulations got the blame for the whopping double-digit decline in November.
The big reason for the latest decline appears to be the new federal rule regarding some new closing documents that need to be processed. Because it's new, people need to work through it. There's a learning curve that has to go through.
Josh Green at Eastern Title Settlement Company has experienced that learning curve firsthand. The new rules that took effect October 3rd have changed the way his business interacts with lenders and slowed down the process.
Where we've had 4 or 5 settlements in a day, they've ended up only being 1 settlement, and they get pushed back each day due to the new closing disclosure rules.
While the closing process has been frustrating for buyers and sellers, it appears to be causing delays, not cancellations. But it could be a few more months before the real impact is known.
I think it's going to take 60 to 90 days to work out all the kinks.
Some say new mortgage regulations are a convenient scapegoat.
What we have seen all year is very low inventory and also appraisal issues. That's been a big change in the market. It's really derailed a lot of closings, and it's delayed settlements.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau says that future closings should go more smoothly once everybody gets used to these new rules. Meanwhile, the realtors say that demand remains steady. It's just price and affordability that are the issues. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Eamon Javers in Washington.
A measure of factory activity in the Mid-Atlantic region rebounded in December. A survey by the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond showed the volume of new orders picked up this month while shipments flattened. The manufacturing sector has been hard hit by both the strong dollar and weak global growth.
While manufacturing overall has been floundering, the automotive portion is doing well. Today, there are reports that Ford and Google are talking about working together to develop self-driving cars. And a partnership, if true, could be announced shortly after the new year. That sent shares of Ford nearly 3.5% higher, and Alphabet, that's the parent of Google, was up a fraction. Phil LeBeau tells us why this reported partnership could mark the beginning of a new era in transportation.
With self-driving cars picking up speed, Ford is reportedly looking to partner with Google, the tech titan turning heads with tiny, self-driven cars. Neither company confirms planning a partnership, but both admit to talking with a number of companies about the future of automobiles, which includes self-driven cars.
How long has Ford been trying to do this themselves? We don't know exactly, but it also makes a lot of sense to partner with someone who's already doing a lot of the work themselves too and wants to partner with an automaker.
Earlier this year, when Ford CEO Mark Field showed us the company's new research center in Palo Alto, California, he admitted Ford is focused on the Silicon Valley because it's a hotbed for innovation.
And that's why we're here, because we want to be part of this community.
Meanwhile, Google's self-driving test cars have logged more than 1.3 million miles, reporting just 17 minor accidents, and none where the Google car was at fault.
So the end goal is to get this technology out so everyone can use it, and we think the right way to do that is in partnership with those folks, the car companies of today who make these vehicles, do an amazing job doing it and have been doing it for 100 years.
Tesla's autopilot already allows drivers to go hands-free for short periods, and GM will soon unveil similar features with Super Cruise Control. Meanwhile, Apple is rumored to be researching electric autonomous drive cars. It's clear the auto and tech industries are on a collision course. What remains to be seen is which companies or partnerships wind up building the next generation of self-driving cars and trucks. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Chicago.
Meantime, Ford is recalling some older cars. The automaker has identified 313,000 vehicles in North America that have headlights that can go dark and cause a crash. The recall covers Crown Vics and Mercury Grand Marquis from the 2003 to 2005 model years. Safety regulators found 15 crashes and 1 injury related to these faulty headlights.
Still ahead, nailed the landing, while the launch of this rocket may mark a new phase in space travel.
SpaceX completed a dramatic and historic launch and landing last night of its Falcon 9 rocket. It was the first time an unmanned rocket returned to land vertically. And as Jane Wells reports, it marks a giant leap for the future of space travel.
It was already big news that SpaceX was launching a Falcon 9 rocket, its first launch since a rocket explosion had grounded everything last June until a problem could be solved. But last night in the Florida sky, it wasn't what went up that had the biggest impact, but what came down. For the first time, SpaceX was able to bring back to Earth in one piece a first stage booster. Not only was it the first successful landing, It was the first time SpaceX had tried it on land after previous attempts to land the booster on a floating site at sea failed.
I can't quite believe it.
SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said on a conference call with reporters that he thought at first the booster had exploded on impact because of the sound of the sonic boom. He was wrong. The booster was fine, and SpaceX even created an image of both the rocket's launch and return.
Could not have asked for a better mission or a better day.
Why is this such a big deal? Well, reusing rockets can bring down the cost of launches by a factor of 100, says Musk, a necessary price cut to make space travel more prevalent and affordable, and critical to his goal of putting people on Mars.
I think it really quite dramatically improves my confidence that a city on Mars is possible.
Last month, Jeff Bezos of Blue Origin also successfully landed a rocket which reached the edge of space before coming back down. Bezos sent his congratulations, sort of pointing out the altitude of the booster. Quote, "Congrats, SpaceX, on landing Falcon's suborbital booster stage. Welcome to the club." But the SpaceX rocket landing was different. It was on a much more difficult mission carrying a payload of 11 satellites. SpaceX will test the booster to see if it could fly again, though it probably won't fly this first one anymore, preferring to keep it as a very big memento. For Nightly Business Report, Jane Wells, Los Angeles.
Meanwhile, Boeing reaches a settlement with the Federal Aviation Administration, and that is where we begin tonight's Market Focus. The Dow component has agreed to pay a $12 million fine and improve its auditing and compliance procedures. The FAA says the fine could double over the next 5 years if the company does not implement the terms of the settlement. Shares of Boeing rose 1% to $142.38. Conagra reported profit that topped expectations despite a decline in sales. The maker of Slim Jim and Chef Boyardee was helped by cost-cutting and lower commodity expenses. Last month, the company said it would sell the majority of its private label business. Shares of Conagra were up a fraction to $41.37. And Paychex said its earnings rose 9% as it expanded its human resources services business. Revenue, however, came in slightly below analyst expectations. Paychex shares were up slightly, though, to $52.71.
Express Scripts issued a strong earnings outlook for next year. The largest pharmacy benefits manager now expects a 10 to 14% increase to its adjusted 2016 earnings. The company also says it is negotiating the repricing of its contract with the big insurer Anthem. The stock started the day higher, but it did finish down slightly at $86.67. Investors getting a chance to react today to earnings from Steelcase. The office furniture maker missed expectations on both the top and bottom lines, gave weak fourth quarter earnings and revenue guidance. Shares down nearly 23% on the day to $14.55. Further declines in shares of Chipotle. As we told you last night, the Centers for Disease Control warns now of a potentially new E. coli outbreak unrelated to the other ones that have weighed on the fast casual chain in recent months. That has prompted J.P. Morgan to downgrade the stock. Shares off another 5% today to $494.61.
Tyler, I don't know if you're like me, but if you're not quite done with your Christmas shopping, there's actually an app for that. Mary Thompson has the story from Amazon Prime Now hub in New York City.
For workers at Amazon's Prime Now fulfillment center in Manhattan, the 1 hour shout out means get moving. This app-based service promising to get the goods to clients in select cities in 60 minutes or less for $7.99.
It is a pricey thing to do 1 hour delivery to customers, but we really do focus on keeping our costs in line so that we can offer great things to customers.
Launched last December, Prime Now is upping the game this year, promising clients using the Prime Now app on their phones to deliver last-minute Christmas gifts to them by 11:59 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Typically, clients use Prime Now to order household items and basics like bottled water. Closer to Christmas, though, Amazon Prime Now's worldwide director, Stephanie Landry, is seeing a change in clients' wish lists.
Heading up to the holiday times, we've seen a shift with people buying more holiday stuff, so toys, lots of board games, consumer electronics, more things for the holidays lately.
Amazon's Prime Now hubs operate pretty much the same as the online giant's traditional warehouses, though at a faster pace and with a higher turnover of inventory to keep up with customers' requests.
Prime Now also keeping up with the times, given you can only order using your mobile device.
And this holiday season, that's where more and more people are shopping. Adobe's saying mobile sales are up over 26% this holiday season, accounting for 37% of all online shopping, as more shoppers phone it in. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Mary Thompson in Manhattan.
Meanwhile, with the economy doing better, are consumers making more donations this year? Patrick Rooney is Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at Indiana University's Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, and he joins us now. Patrick, welcome. Good to have you with us. Last year, Americans gave something like $358 billion, 3/4 of which came from individuals. Do you expect that number to be up this year? And how tied is giving to the fate of the economy and the stock market?
Yeah, we think that the economy is a very important player in overall giving because people give generously out of their incomes every year, and the more incomes they have and the more wealth they have, the more they are likely to give and the bigger gifts they are likely to make. Each year we see increases and decreases as we see with the business cycle, so we're hopeful that giving will increase next year.
Are people, Patrick, being more discerning in terms of where they give? I'm hearing a lot more about impact philanthropy and people wanting to actually work in an organization, perhaps volunteer before they give money, really checking out these organizations to make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing, that their money is going to the right purpose. Are we seeing more research and more activity like that among a lot of donors?
Absolutely. More and more donors are saying, I want to understand the impact that my gift will have. I want to understand the organization. I want to make sure that it has good leadership and good management. So they look at the board members. They sometimes volunteer themselves first. And they want to look at what are the long-term outcomes as well as the short-term impacts.
Where do Americans give the most?
Well, about a third of total giving goes to their faith-based organizations, so mass, mosque, synagogue, other congregations. Higher education and other educational institutions get about 15%. Health and human services get another 15%. Those are the biggest subsectors.
Very quickly, Patrick, where can you go to check out the charity that you're interested in? Where should you go to do the research?
Well, one of the resources that's available to everyone for free is GuideStar, www.guidestar. It's a resource that has annual reports and the IRS informational tax returns for all the charities that are in the United States. So that's a good resource as a starting point.
Very quickly, I would assume that the more affluent you are, the more inclined as a percentage of those people that those people would give. But do the affluent give a larger percentage of their income than those who give who are not so affluent, or do you know?
That's a great question. We absolutely see an increase in giving and the propensity to give with increases in wealth across the entire income and wealth spectrums. At the same time, some people speculate that low-income households give more sacrificially out of their incomes because they have less with which to deal with. We do a study every other year for Bank of America on philanthropy among high net worth households, and we see that very high net worth households tend to give a larger and larger share of their income compared to the middle class and lower middle class in the United States.
Patrick, thank you very much. Patrick Rooney with Indiana University's Lilly Family School of Philanthropy.
Thanks for having me.
And coming up, Seeing Green, a small business that's hoping to make it big when New York's new medical marijuana laws kick in the new year.
Here's what to watch tomorrow. Lots of economic data to keep an eye on, including durable goods orders, a read on personal income and spending. The new home sales report is also out, and that's what you need to watch Wednesday.
The new year will bring some changes to New York's marijuana laws. The state's 5 licensees will be able to legally sell medicinal cannabis in early January. And as Kate Rogers reports from Johnstown, New York, one entrepreneur is ready to open for business.
New York State's marijuana startups will be ringing in the new year with green, raking in their first official sales. After being awarded one of the state's 5 licenses for medicinal marijuana operations earlier this summer, Vireo Health of New York is gearing up to begin selling on January 5th. The company has invested upwards of $5 million in its Johnstown, New York cultivation center, which features 8 flowering rooms, each with hundreds of plants. They're also building out a 20,000 square foot grow house.
It's surprising to most folks that most of our medications actually aren't intoxicating. So some of our medications are high in THC, which is important for some patients, some conditions, but most of our medications are predominantly CBD, which is not intoxicating. And so actually 3 of our 5 products are not going to cause any intoxication.
The company will open up 4 dispensaries across the state in 2016, including one in Queens. The catch with New York State's law is that you can't actually smoke any of the cannabis. So all of the plants that you see here behind me, those will be turned into oils for vaporization and also capsules to be ingested orally. New York's law, the Compassionate Care Act, is one of the most restrictive in the country. Right now, there are only 10 approved illnesses for patients to get certified for treatment. Among them are ALS, cancer, AIDS or HIV, and Parkinson's disease. Another catch, insurance won't cover medicinal marijuana, but Vireo Health says it's committed to expanding patient access.
As far as the low income program, folks that are on medical assistance or have reduced income are going to qualify for a 10% reduction across the board on all of our products.
The Department of Health for New York State says the doctor certification and education process is ongoing, and with just 2 weeks left until sales begin, patient certification should be up and running shortly. For Nightly Business Report in Johnstown, New York, I'm Kate Rogers.
And to read more about the business of medicinal marijuana in New York, head to our website, nbr.com.
That's Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sharon Epperson. Thanks so much for watching.
And thanks from me as well. I'm Tyler Mathisen. Have a great evening, everybody, and we will hope to see you right back here tomorrow night.